I used to believe that love, once solidified by vows and years, was immune to erosion. But lately, I've learned that even the strongest foundations can quietly crack. My name is Arman, and for 7 years I've shared my life with Meera, my wife, my best friend, my once unwavering companion. We met at university where her laughter cut through lecture hall silence like sunlight through stained glass. Everything about her then was vivid: her ideas, her curiosity, her affection. And for a long time that never changed. We built a life together filled with shared dreams, lazy Sunday mornings, and inside jokes no one else could decode. But something began to shift 2 years ago. Nothing dramatic, no shouting matches or slammed doors, just silence. We became polite, functional, like two colleagues managing a household rather than partners nurturing a bond. She still made coffee in the mornings, but she stopped adding cinnamon, my favorite. She still asked how my day was, but never waited for the answer. I didn't notice it all at once. It crept in slowly, like dusk. At first, I blamed her new job. She'd landed a role at a media agency that demanded long hours and endless calls. I was proud of her, still am, but her mind was always elsewhere. She came home late, exhausted, sometimes skipping dinner altogether. I convinced myself this was temporary, a phase. But then, intimacy faded. She began turning away in bed, clutching her pillow like a lifeline. I'd reach for her and she'd murmur, "Not tonight. I'm tired." It wasn't rejection so much as absence. Like she was somewhere else entirely, in a world I was no longer invited to. I started doubting myself. Was I doing enough? Did I take her for granted? I tried making small changes, left her notes in her bag, cooked her favorite pasta, even downloaded that art film she once obsessed over. She smiled, thanked me, but it felt like she was humoring a stranger. One evening, I returned from work to find her on the balcony, headphones in, staring out at the skyline. I stood at the doorway, watching her, familiar yet unreachable. It hit me then how little I knew about what was going on inside her head. I missed her. Not just the woman she was, but the space we used to share. The emotional refuge we once built with laughter, late-night conversations, and spontaneous weekend road trips. That space felt abandoned now. But I wasn't ready to give up. Something told me she hadn't completely shut the door, maybe just left it ajar, waiting for me to knock the right way. So I made a decision. If distance had crept in slowly, maybe closeness could return the same way. I would plan something that reminded us of who we were before the silence. Maybe a night that could help us remember why we chose each other in the first place. Because I still believed, perhaps foolishly, that love was worth the effort. And so, the night that changed everything began with hope. I spent the better part of a week planning the evening. Not because I believed one night could fix everything, but because I hoped it might crack the shell we'd both built around ourselves. I didn't tell Meera. Surprises used to delight her, back when delight wasn't a stranger to her face. I left work early that Friday, determined to get everything right. I lit candles, 12 of them, placed just so on the dining table and windowsills. I cooked her favorite meal, saffron rice with almond-crusted chicken and roasted vegetables. I even dug out the old playlist we used to dance to on the kitchen floor during our early days together. The apartment smelled of citrus and hope. My hands trembled more than I'd expected. She walked in just after 8, her shoulders slumped, eyes heavy, phone still in hand. When she looked up and saw the flickering lights, her expression flickered too, caught between surprise and guardedness. "You did all this?" she asked, setting her purse down. I nodded. Thought we could use a little us time. She didn't speak immediately, just looked around, then back at me, searching for something. Maybe sincerity, maybe motive. I pulled out her chair. She sat. Dinner was quiet at first. Our words were careful, measured. She asked how work was. I asked if her agency finally signed that food brand campaign. We danced around each other like strangers performing a familiar script. But then something shifted. A song came on. 1. We used to hum in unison, terribly off-key, driving down to the coast. She smiled. A real one. It pulled at something in me I hadn't felt in months. I haven't heard this in years, she said softly, twirling her fork. Thought you might remember. She nodded, setting her fork down. I do. We talked more easily after that. Not deeply, but genuinely. She laughed when I reminded her of the time we'd gotten caught in the rain during a hiking trip and had to huddle under a stranger's umbrella. She reminded me how I once burned pasta so badly the fire alarm summoned. The neighbors. For a moment, time folded back on itself, and we were us again. After dinner, we sat on the couch, the music now just a soft echo in the background. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. I miss this, I said, barely above a whisper. Her eyes didn't meet mine, but she gave the faintest nod. Me too, sometimes. I leaned closer, heart racing, not from desire but from hope, fragile and cautious. She let me. And in that stillness, something tender unfolded. A kiss, hesitant, but real. A shared warmth not of passion but of longing. We didn't speak, afraid words might shatter the fragile moment we had rebuilt. But as her head rested on my shoulder, I couldn't help but feel there was something unspoken still between us. Something unresolved. Hidden. I didn't know it then, but that night was not a beginning. It was the calm before a storm I never saw coming. In the days that followed our fragile reunion, a strange tension settled over me. The warmth we'd shared that night seemed like a fragile veneer stretched thin over something darker beneath the surface. I wanted to believe Meera had truly returned, but a whisper of doubt echoed louder with every passing hour. It began with small signs. She grew secretive again, guarded phone calls she stepped outside to take, sudden changes in her schedule, hurried texts that disappeared when I glanced over. The familiarity I craved was slipping away, replaced by a distance even colder than before. One afternoon, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I hesitated, telling myself it wasn't my place to pry. But something tugged at me, a knot in my stomach I couldn't ignore. When the screen lit up, a message preview flashed. Miss you. Wish you were here. My breath caught. Who was this? I scrolled. Another message. Can we talk tonight? I need to see you. My pulse quickened. The name on the screen was unfamiliar. Raj. I had never heard Meera mention him. A surge of panic mixed with pain flooded me. Was this the reason for her distance? Had our fragile love become collateral damage in some secret liaison? I debated confronting her immediately, but the thought of shattering the tentative peace we'd rebuilt made me hesitate. Instead, I began to watch more carefully, not out of suspicion alone, but out of a desperate need to understand what I was losing. Over the next few days, the messages multiplied, growing more intimate. She was sharing parts of herself with someone else, laughing at inside jokes, exchanging photos, weaving an emotional connection that I was no longer a part of. I remembered her words the night we'd reconnected. Sometimes I miss this. Was that sometimes only a fleeting moment, a facade to keep me close while her heart wandered elsewhere? One evening I found her sitting in the living room staring at her phone. She looked up when I entered, eyes glossy but guarded. I wanted to ask her then and there to demand the truth, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I waited. The truth was not mine to unravel alone. Later that night, restless and unable to sleep, I picked up her phone when she'd left it unattended. My hands trembled as I read through the conversations, words of longing, apologies for stolen time, promises to meet again soon. Every sentence felt like a blade twisting in my chest. I saw a side of Meera I didn't know, a woman caught between love, guilt, and desire for something more than what we had. The betrayal was not violent or loud. It was quiet, insidious, and devastating. In that moment, I realized the fragile hope I'd clung to was just an illusion. I wasn't sure how to confront her. or if I even wanted to. But one thing was certain: our marriage would never be the same. And the night that once held promise now loomed over us like a shadow too heavy to escape. The next morning, the weight of what I had discovered pressed down on me like a storm ready to break. I paced the apartment, heart heavy with questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. When Meera emerged from the bedroom still in her robe, I felt the fragile barrier between us collapse. I didn't waste time. "We need to talk," I said, quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. Her eyes widened for a moment, then softened with resignation. She nodded and sat down at the kitchen table, motioning for me to do the same. "I know," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never wanted you to find out like this." I stared at her, searching her face for the woman I thought I knew. The smile that once lit up rooms, the laughter that used to fill our home. Instead, there was a tired vulnerability, a confession, waiting to be released. "It started months ago," she admitted. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I felt lost, disconnected. I thought maybe talking to someone else would help me understand what I was missing." Her words stung, but beneath the hurt was a raw honesty I hadn't heard in a long time. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, voice cracking. "Why keep it a secret?" "I was scared," she said, tears threatening to fall. "Scared of losing you, scared of admitting that something between us had broken." For a moment, silence hung heavy between us, thick, with the weight of years spent apart even while sharing the same space. I thought about the night we had tried to reclaim what was lost, the fleeting warmth, the laughter, the kiss. Had it all been a lie? Or was it simply the last flicker of a dying flame? "I loved you," I whispered. "I still do. But love isn't enough if there's no trust, no truth." She nodded slowly, wiping away a tear. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know why." We sat there, two broken souls trying to navigate the wreckage of what we once built. There were no easy answers. No quick fixes. In the days that followed, we agreed to take time apart, to heal, to reflect, to decide if what remained was worth fighting for. Sometimes, love means knowing when to hold on. Sometimes, it means having the courage to let go. So I watched her leave that morning, suitcase in hand. I felt a mixture of sorrow and relief. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, there was clarity. Our story wasn't the fairy tale I once imagined. It was messy, painful, real, and maybe in that truth there was hope. Not for a perfect ending, but for a new beginning.